All right, Otters. So in this video, what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the abstract. So the abstract is an essential part of the application process for the UW, and it's also a really helpful tool for figuring out exactly what you're talking about. So it's a little bit like an elevator pitch, if you will, it's sort of a short version of all of the work that you've been doing. So an abstract you've probably encountered in academic essays or academic articles that you've been researching, right? It's a short little blurb, usually at the beginning of a paper, that gives you the overview of what the research was, why it was done, things like that. So again, it's a requirement for the UW. And again, they know that between the time that you write your abstract and the time that you present at the UW, there's probably going to be development. So again, there are no abstract police that are saying, well, this doesn't quite match up. So don't worry about that too much. Now, this is from the UW. So they say an abstract is a concise summary of your research that highlights major points from your project. Work with your mentor to review your abstract and title before submitting. We strongly recommend that you view the abstract writing workshop on YouTube and abstract statement guidelines to help you get started. You can also review examples from previous year symposiums. So that, in a nutshell, is what we're going to be doing with the first part of the quarter to create this abstract. Now, because the abstract is part of the application, it's important that it's as polished as possible. It's the way that the UW will be able to decide and figure out whether or not your work kind of fits in with the overall architecture of the symposium, right? So they have a couple suggestions. So we're going to go through these, and then we're going to look at a couple abs, or at least one abstract. So the abstract is a single paragraph with no headings. There are minimal to no citations. So while your literature review and other things will have citations, you're not going to have a whole lot of citations in your abstract because you have a finite amount of space. I believe it's 300 words. You're going to use active voice. So I conducted analysis versus analyses were run. You're going to make explicit your personal contributions to a project. Now, since you are the sole researcher, that is a place to sort of highlight that. Obviously, use I statements versus we or our team where appropriate. The context or purpose, right? What is the purpose, including background of the project? So why are we doing the project? A question or hypotheses. So this could be your research question or your research aim. So provide a clear statement of your project's question, hypothesis, or goal. And then methodology or approach. So describe the methodology, including measurement and tools, participant demographics as applicable, etc. Now, for our purposes, your methodology or approach is a literature review. So you don't have to think about this one too much. It's not a survey. It's not, a lab, experiment or anything like that. So it is just a literature review. And then your expected or preliminary findings. So your project will be in progress still, right? What are your anticipated findings and what are the implications? So share why these findings matter, the impact on the field or future work, right? Again, it is a very short paragraph. And if you haven't written something like this before, it can be a challenge, especially to distill down, work that you've been doing for the last 15 to 20 weeks, maybe for some of you longer than that. How do you distill all of that down into 300 words, right? So it is one paragraph of no more than 300 words. And you can't really fudge it because the UW is going to have a word count. So I know that at least one year, we had a student who was incredibly verbose, and he and I worked on his abstract for probably weeks to get all of this stuff down into just 300 words. So let's look at an example because I find that that's a really helpful way to do this. And so we're going to look at one example, and then you're going to have an assignment, which is to find two abstracts that you find interesting. And so you'll go through this process on your own as well. But here is one example. This is from a Shoreline student from several years ago, and this is how we sort of copy the abstracts into our own document, which you can find online on the Canvas site as well. So a couple things as we go through this, and I think rather than read the whole thing, I'm just going to kind of highlight some major things, and then we can talk about it more in class. So the first thing that we see is the title, and we're going to actually spend one of our weeks focusing just on titles because they are so important. A good title, especially for an abstract, makes it very clear, kind of sets the stage. And so it does a lot of the work for you so that you can get kind of straight into things with your abstract. So this one, Youth on the Margins, an analysis of youth political participation and diversity in the United States. Now, from that, again, we're not really trying to capture attention or come up with something flashy. Much like the academic articles you're reading, it's really informative. It's just intended to say, this is what the study was. Now, the next two parts are very similar to what's going to appear in the UW on the symposium website as well. So you've got the student, their year, so sophomore, their major, and then where, right, the institution, Shoreline Community College. You have the mentor. So in this case, it was Terry Taylor, the mentor's field, political science, and then the mentor's institution. So if we look at what we have here, and again, you could pause or you can go and find this in the document, 300 words. And again, we dive straight into it. There are no citations here, but there are some parentheticals. We get young adults ages 18 to 24, and we have some examples like race, gender, level of education. So if we look down kind of towards the bottom here, right? So in the middle, the research provides statistical comparison. So it's a literature review, right? But it's it's analyzing very specific statistics. So the research provides statistical comparisons which allow for quantitative analysis of participation rates among diverse youth, and additionally provides a qualitative examination of constructions of citizenship, socialization, and education, which might discourage participation in traditional democracy. So again, we have that much more academic wording. We don't really have any jargon in here. There's a lot that I think most of us, even that aren't super familiar with political science, can follow. And then if we skip kind of just to the last sentence here, so it starts with, well, shifts in socialization. So while shifts in socialization may not be achievable through public policy solutions, implications of this research could offer alternatives and solutions to the problem of youth political participation to both existing educational institutions and policymakers when considering youth engagement in the governance process. So again, what we have is the future application or implications of the research that this student did. All right. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of that foundation of what these abstracts are. Again, this is a student who presented at the UW. It was a student that was in the research track, about in the same place that you are right now. And there are plenty of these, both in the Shoreline research track abstracts and at the UW. So let's just really quickly go over some other sort of purposes here. So what are they? We've kind of been talking about. So from Bowling Green State U, which I believe is one of our readings, an abstract is a short statement about your paper, sort of mini version. Its purpose is to allow a reader to quickly and accurately identify the basic content of your paper, and what should be in it should be the purpose of your study, the research methods, and your results. And the UW has an abstract workshop, and they will actually walk you through the order that they prefer to have things in, which is exactly what you should follow. From the University of Melbourne, so very similar again to the UWs. So even though they talk about it as sections, what you're really talking about here is maybe 2, maybe 3 sentences, right? So the reason, right, what is the importance of the research, the problem, what problem does the work attempt to solve, and what's the scope of it, the methodology. Again, we talked about that. That's going to be a literature review for our purposes. The results. So an abstract of a scientific work may include specific data that indicates the results of a project. Again, we're going to be focusing on the literature review. The literature points to X, Y, or Z. And then the implications. How does this work add to the body of knowledge on the topic? Are there any theoretical applications from your findings or things like that? And then the last one I want to look at is this one from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So an abstract is a short summary of published or unpublished research, usually about a paragraph. They say 6 to 7 sentences, 150 to 250 words. So UW is right in there for this project. A well-written abstract serves multiple purposes. It allows readers to get the gist or essence of your paper and article quickly, decide whether or not to read the whole thing, or for the cases of, in the case of the symposium, whether or not they want to stop by your poster or not. An abstract prepares readers to follow the detailed information, analyses, and arguments in your full paper or in the discussions. And later, an abstract helps readers remember key points. So, and think of it as a little bit of the elevator pitch, a little bit of, if people are looking through 1,000 abstracts to decide which, panel they want to, or which speech they want to go to, or which poster they want to go to, that's what's going to help them decide. If they're interested in your topic, they're going to be, inclined to stop by and talk with you. And the abstract is what serves that purpose. Now, again, at the symposium, it's probably not going to be the case that somebody shows up and says, well, this is what your abstract says and what is your research. The abstract, again, is the starting point, and it is that sort of distillation of your project that you can fall back on as needed. All right, so there you go. If you have questions, comments, concerns, jokes, memes, or recipes, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you all later.